Welcome to the Atheist Experience. We are live. It is Sunday. I don't know what
the 6th
is. No, yesterday was the 6th. Today's the 7th. It's the 7th of September.
You're right. We're both just completely out of it.
Yeah.
I mean, you're jamming out, and I have a cow on my shoulder.
And we're doing something completely different today. We're chucking aside any normal format. So we're putting the number up right now.
Bing.
There it is. Right there. Mm-hmm. You're now able to call in. I'm going to postpone the announcements. We'll do them as we have time.
We're just going to talk to folks.
If you've got something you want to talk about that's, religion, atheism, philosophy, if you want to call in and tell us what you believe, why you believe it, why you think we're wrong, if you'd like to ask questions about what atheists believe, why they believe it, why they don't believe it, anything like that, you're welcome to. The number's up, and we're starting to take calls now, and the phone lines are already lighting up. The goal is to see exactly how many calls we can get today. So the process is you're still going to call in. The first thing that's going to happen is you're going to talk to a screener. That's mostly so they can get your name and what you wanted to talk about up fairly quickly, so that we can do that. And as long as the phone lines aren't full, we're not going to just chop people off. But as soon as we get full phone lines, we're going to try and keep it to short. Make a point, get an answer, move on, call back in if you want to. So that's right. That's pretty much the thing.
It's your show today, Colin.
So I'm Matt Dillahunty, and you're who?
Martin.
Martin?
Yes, I'm here once a month.
Wagner. Can we? There he is.
Hello.
He was waiting for the camera.
Yes.
I was wanting you to say, I'm Martin Wagner.
Oh, well, I am Martin Wagner.
But okay.
Still, just as I was 5 minutes ago when you were saying that. So I don't need to repeat what you say.
So we're having fun. We're doing everything different today, and as soon as we start getting notifications that people are ready to talk, we'll start talking. I'll postpone the regular announcements and feed them in by doing this. You're watching the Atheist Experience. We are live every Sunday on public access television out of Austin, Texas, and broadcasts around the world as downloadable podcasts. The video portion is available at Google Video. For more information, you can go to our website, www.atheist-community.org, and we don't have to wait any longer. We have Haven. How you doing?
How's it going, man?
You claim that you have proof of God.
I have a proof, a logical proof of God, but more importantly, the logical proof for omnipresence.
For what?
Omnipresence.
Okay.
All right, bring it.
Okay. So, it's going to be kind of rooted more in physics, but as you approach the speed of light, everything kind of slows down. Motion would stop the light, the refraction of whatever's moving at the speed of light. Light wouldn't be able to bounce off hidden observer, to where the observer wouldn't be, what it is that's moving. But as you're approaching the speed of light, that object would actually stretch to the observer. Does that make sense?
Sure, kind of.
Well, no, I'm afraid I'm not following his train here.
Okay. Well,
you're talking about the law of special relativity, right? Like you're in a spaceship flying, you're getting close to the speed of light, and time for you inside your spaceship is slower than it is for the outside. Like the outside, the universe is racing along.
Actually, time for the observer would proceed along normally.
Yeah.
But
whereas
to
what's
the outside observer,
it's moving very
fast.
No, it's moving it's moving much.
Anyway.
You're in the spaceship and you're aging more slowly.
If you're looking at
compared to the outside.
A ray of light from a mirror in a dark, the ray of light appears as a length, as opposed to you seeing each individual photon light up. You know what I mean? You don't see specks; you see a stretched ray. Does that make sense?
Okay, but that's still made up of. It's not like a solid beam or anything, right?
It's an actual ray, and it appears to be a ray to the observer.
A ray is the label that we put on it. Understanding the way light works and it moves, it operates both as a particle and a wave. I don't know how this is getting to proof of God or proof of
that's what I was. That was my next question.
What I'm getting to,
and the lines are full, so we need to roll it along.
Yeah.
It's a proof of omnipresence.
Okay.
Okay.
And it's kind of hard to explain to, in terms without diagrams and a lot of, background in physics and whatnot.
Right. Okay. Then I guess we're kind of stuck, aren't we?
Yeah. We're kind of
okay. Thanks.
Well, how about, with the proof of God?
Okay.
I don't know if I'm going to be...
Give us your quick proof of God, and then we're going to move on to other callers.
Okay. Quick proof of God. Classical realism, the fact The universe exists and can't exist because of itself. Also reinforced by the law of conservation of energy. Something has to create the actual system outside of the system that is outside of the law.
Why? Why couldn't the universe
can't create itself?
Okay, where'd God come from?
That's outside of our system and possibly unable to understand.
Okay, so why couldn't the universe have always existed? And at the instant of the Big Bang that formed the current stage of the universe, that's when the laws that we use to determine what the nature of reality are, that's when those begin to apply. If we
because
can't go,
the law of physics would have, the only way that could happen is that the law of physics changed.
See, and that's the problem.
Right.
That's the
Well,
problem.
but the thing is, even then, those laws of physics predating these laws would have to have been created by something. It's
Right.
the idea of something
And-
has to start the push.
Yeah, and that kind of argument means that no matter what you think about God, that he must have been created by somebody. If you're going to dismiss the fact that that we don't know what happened, for example, prior to the Planck time, where our understanding of physics break down and where the functional nature of the universe may have in fact changed. If you're going to dismiss all of that and say that, well, whatever rules existed must have also had some kind of pre-existing rules and conditions, then you must also apply that to your God excuse in order to remain consistent. Otherwise, it's just a matter of special pleading.
Yeah.
You're saying that there must have been something that doesn't conform to rules in order to create those rules.
Yeah, I mean, because
It doesn't conform to the rules of this universe, is what it is. What had created this universe doesn't apply to the rules of this universe, but it is the source for all the laws in this universe, as well as the source for the reason.
But you need to demonstrate how you know that, how you reach that conclusion. Well, whatever created this universe and its laws obviously had to belong to some sort of other universe or some other realm in which the laws of this one don't apply, so it had its own laws, etc., etc., etc. You're essentially trying to solve a mystery by introducing another mystery, as you said earlier on.
Because the existence of infinity in our universe, other universe, then there would be also an infinity existing in that.
But you haven't.
There isn't an infinity.
Yeah.
We're done with that. We're moving on. We got full lines. But go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, you still have not structured your argument in such a way as to where this other realm and this other creative force or God or whatever you call it still does not have its own set of rules, or does not have to obey the rules that you apply to this universe, which is there had to be some sort of a creative entity there. You haven't really allowed yourself to avoid the rather troubling problem of infinite regress. I mean, your God, whether he exists in or out of this universe and in whatever way you want to define that state of existence, still would have to have a cause for its existence in the form that your argument's currently taking. You haven't avoided the real problem there.
Yeah, and so the whole thing of trying to solve a mystery with a mystery is we tend to explain things in terms of things that we understand. And so by saying that you have an explanation of the universe and that it is beyond understanding, you haven't done anything. Your explanation has no explanatory power. And as soon as you make these special exemptions of, well, there's some intelligent, transcendent being which exists outside of time and the universe as we understand it, and it has its own rules that we can't understand, and that's how this all got here, now you're just making a bold assertion. And what happens a lot of times is when Christians in particular go to assert that this transcendent being exists, they say he also transcends the rules of logic that we understand. Mm-hmm. And one of the things about that I find really amusing is that the core principle of logic can be expressed as A or not A. Something either is what it is or it isn't. It can't be both. It's an exclusionary principle. That's how we come to understand everything about the universe. And if you say that God then exists outside of the boundaries of logic, then you're saying that God can exist and not exist at the same time, which if we ignore all of these sometimes exist, sometimes not exist, sets up three possibilities. God exists, God does not exist, God both exists and not exists. And in two out of the three of those situations, God doesn't exist. Mull that around for a while.
Yeah.
I mean, when you want to say something's outside of the realm of our understanding and outside of the realm of logic and reason, that's what you're doing. You no longer have any grounds to make any kind of positional claim.
Yeah, it's the same trap that a lot of creationists, for example, fall into. they declare that in order for anything in reality to exist, it has to obey a certain checklist of rules. And so in order to then explain the existence of everything that we are and everything that we see, they begin to invoke things that, oh, lucky for them, don't have to obey that checklist of rules. And that's kind of really cheating. You're just really making stuff up at that point, because if you've simply given an answer that contradicts your premise.
Yeah.
So thanks for calling, though. Going to get on with it.
Yep. We got more callers on the line. Ray, how you doing? Hello, Ray?
You there?
Because I got to tell you the truth.
I gotta tell you the truth.
Okay.
Ray, are you there?
Yeah, we can barely hear.
Bullshit.
Hello?
Every time Major League bullshit, you have to stand in awe of the all-time champion of false promises and exaggerated claims.
I think we've heard that.
You're just going to play Carlin. I like Carlin just fine. Granted, he got a little less funny and more bitchy in the end, but he was still right. But, if that's all you wanted to do.
Well, we've heard that routine, so people can go to YouTube and hear it some more.
But,
So,
if you
I like the
actually
routine.
had
It's a great routine.
Yeah. If you actually had a question, you can call back. And we'll move on to David. How you doing?
Hey guys, how's it going?
Well, all right.
Matt and Martin. I like it when you guys are on here. Martin is really smart, almost as smart as Matt.
Oh, please. Martin's way smarter.
Well,
I'm just kidding about
We're
that.
both smarter than all the callers, though. I mean, that it has to be true.
Well, I know you
I'm
got
not
a lot
smart
of
enough to figure
callers.
that statement out, though. Let me think.
I know you got a lot of callers, so I'm going to try to be quick on you today here, though I probably will fail.
Just
A couple of months ago, Matt, you and I had an argument where you kept, and we even got a little heated, which I feel so bad about.
I don't.
I know.
I don't bear any ill will. I mean, there's no hard feelings. Sometimes arguments get heated. We're talking about
that's
important
what
subjects.
happens, yes. Well, one of the things that happens with this show is we just don't have time to go into everything deeply and to understand that the other person may not always be talking about what you think they are.
Yeah.
And that's what happened last time, because you kept saying, well, you're arguing Zeno's paradox, and it's I don't believe in it. And I kept trying, that's not what I'm arguing. So today I wanted to show you quickly how to debunk anyone who does call in with Zeno's paradox, because of it has been debunked.
Well,
now, of course,
I'm curious as to what you actually. First of all, I don't know that I ever said that I don't believe in Zeno's paradox. It's not the paradox. When we present a paradox, it's a logical contradiction, and somewhere it usually means that there's a fallacy in there, or at least something that's beyond our
well, I
understanding.
can tell you close to exactly what you said.
Oh, well,
You said, you're using the argument of Zeno's paradox, and I've had people use that argument on me, and they've never made their case, and I just don't transcribe to it.
The point wasn't that I don't necessarily accept that a paradox exists. The point there, as long as we're going for clarity, is that you cannot use a paradox to justify your position. There's a whole reason why we've coined the term paradox to describe something. It can't be the basis of a proof like that, because there's an inherent contradiction.
I agree wholeheartedly, especially when it's untrue from the beginning.
Okay,
The
sure.
reason why it's a paradox, of course, is because that he was trying to tell us that there's an infinity between point A and point B, and we all make it from point A to point B 1,000 times a day. In a little while, y'all are going to Threadgills. You're actually going to make it.
Yeah.
You're going to eat, then you're going to go home again. You're actually going to make it.
unless
And
that asteroid hits.
that's why it's a paradox. We already know
Right.
that it can't be true. And we therefore walk away saying, okay, mathematics is impure then. But
Well,
it's not. It was the fact that Zeno, his premise was wrong from the get-go.
No, that's the difference. The problem is that you're trying to overlay a mathematical principle, which is a construct, onto reality. Yes, we all know that between these 2 points, there are an infinite number of identifiable spots, because we can continue to divide by half, for example, as one of
By half,
Zeno's
and fourth,
paradoxes.
8th, 16th, 32nd, 64th.
Right.
Yeah.
We could keep doing that infinitely, because the set of numbers is infinite, and there's no delineation. The reason that we
But
can
Matt,
do
you made a mistake.
the reason that we're not stuck in place by the paradox is that we're able to cross over finite measured spaces. It's not we're unable to actually physically in reality divide at the level that mathematics can, because mathematics is necessarily infinite.
But he made a mistake in the way he applied it. That's the problem.
Okay, how so?
Okay, let me take you back to second grade math. Put little Davy on a train, okay? The train is going, or let's say the train is traveling from Austin to Houston, 165 miles. It's traveling at 55 miles per hour. So how many hours does it take Davy to get to Houston? It, of course, takes 3, okay, because, 55 miles.
I got you.
3
times 55, got it.
Yeah, we're there.
Zeno only applies the distance and forgets that whenever you have a traveler, you must take speed into the equation.
You are now saying
is incorrect.
You're now saying exactly what I just said a minute ago.
Well, at least I'm saying it a lot simpler. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
So anytime anybody looks at you and says, well, Zeno's paradox, all you have to do is go, wait a minute. Zeno forgot to apply speed. All he did was measure distance.
No, his point had nothing to do with speed. Speed was excluded on purpose in order to make the point. The point was about an infinite division or infinite regression. But none of that matters. What's the point, I guess? Because I think we already agree if that was your point.
That any person that comes along with Zeno's paradox, I was trying to show you a way. Well, here is a way to very quickly show them, look, it's been debunked.
Right.
I mean, you can Google it and read this 1,000 times, 1,000 different ways.
I'm sorry for butting in here.
No,
I missed the original argument. So how is any of this applying to, say, questions about theism and what have you?
Yeah.
I guess that's our worry was the subject of the day just happened to be mathematical paradoxes and interesting brain puzzles.
Well, it doesn't necessarily. It's the fact that I waited all the way through 3 shows before to get to this and never did. So I took it as my opportunity to call in and get this information to Matt.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting topic. I was just wondering how it came up on the program, I guess.
At that time, we were trying to talk about infinities.
Oh, okay.
Right. But
like whether there really is one?
Or if infinity exists.
Right.
Or eternity exists. And unless time stops, of course it does. But you don't have to run. Nobody has to go running to Zeno's paradox every time the word infinity comes up. Was my point that day.
Actually, like the first caller, an infinity doesn't exist. Infinity is something that you can never reach, and while time may be infinite, the point is that you could never get to the end of it, and that's the demonstration of Zeno's paradox that shows that it is true. You've set a set distance and ignored infinite distance.
That's precisely what you did a couple of months ago.
Okay.
You kept going, okay, you take point A and point B, and I kept trying to tell you that day, wait a minute, we're talking about infinity, there's no point A. And then you kept going into Zeno's paradox.
Right, because you were saying, if I'm remembering correctly, and I'm probably not, that you couldn't get to now if time was infinite in regression. Is that what you were saying?
Correct, because there was no point A.
You're wrong.
Well,
And you kept telling me I'm arguing Zeno's paradox.
Yeah,
when I
you're
was telling
wrong
you, no,
because you're
Zeno's paradox
applying...
is between point A and point B.
Right.
And I was telling you, in this case, there's no point A. However, there was another point I was making that day because your Wonder Twin was there.
Okay.
And see, one thing you have to understand about me, I'm not always taking the opposite side. Sometimes I'm trying to help you take your side.
Okay.
One thing that really helps when people come up with this stuff that matter cannot be eternal and only God can be eternal. First of all, this is not mutually exclusive. If somebody wants to say God is eternal and matter can't be eternal, well, of course they both can be. Who made a rule that they can't? Why can't matter be eternal? And I believe that both you and Tracy both agreed that matter could certainly be eternal.
I have no problem with with things existing eternally. I mean, the concept when we're talking about, for example, how the universe formed.
I know you said it exactly yourself. I told you I'm adding flame to your fire, not arguing with you.
I don't understand how we're getting anywhere.
I was trying to help you with some easier ways of clarifying some points.
Okay.
Gosh, now I feel like I'm useless.
I mean, originally when you'd called in about somewhere where we potentially disagree, or something that supports your theistic views, and we got sidetracked onto abstract concepts that really aren't relevant until somebody tries to make them relevant. Now, while it's nice to get simpler explanations that somebody else might understand or might help somebody else understand better, I'm not sure that we've actually made progress there, because your explanation, apart from being simpler and different, we're in agreement there. So where were we in disagreement before, and how does that relate to the case that you were making?
Before, when I called, I thought that you were trying to say that eternity can exist, in the past, but you just a moment ago said something different.
Well, first of all, the direction of approach is the problem. Trying to move backwards, we can count backwards in time. I'm talking about as an abstract concept. There's nothing that necessarily makes us require a starting point, and in fact, a starting point is a violation of that.
I guess a real, to me, the issue would be you can talk in mathematical abstracts about eternity and infinity, all the livelong day,
and put everybody to sleep.
But but in the intro, before we get on to the next guy, my question would be, how would you be able, say, empirically, in the real world, to determine whether or not something had existed eternally into the past and was going to be continuing to exist eternally into the future? How would you have any sort of measurement of that?
I don't think we can.
And I don't know how you could do it. I mean, certainly, for example, in the case of the universe, we know that it is finite in terms of we can trace it back to a beginning, but you get back to this little hazy bit called Planck time where you can't get past that. You can get pretty close to the beginning, but the point is we simply don't know what was there before that time, and we cannot say, even if current concepts of time and laws of physics as we understand them even existed at that period. We can't even say if it is appropriate to talk about a time before the Big Bang if time itself as we know it didn't exist, if there were other states. So ultimately I think that this is all just a whole bunch of chit-chatting about concepts, and while it's interesting, I don't know that it really gets us any farther to understanding of reality.
Well, what it ends up is I really wasted your time today by trying to tell you how not to waste time with people like me in the future.
That is beautiful.
Okay, well,
cool.
Hey, well, it was it was all very interesting, all the same.
Oh, I feel so bad now. I'm useless.
No, you're not. Just come up with an actual, support for your theistic position and call in with that.
Yeah. And we'll chat over that.
Yeah, and you can actually call back because there's probably going to be lines open here again shortly. I want to go ahead while we're waiting. There's somebody on. Actually,
let's talk to Jonathan.
Jonathan, you there?
Yes, I am.
How you doing?
I'm doing great. It's good to talk to you guys. Today's the first day I'm actually watching y'all's show, and first off, I wanted to say that really appreciate it. I'm not myself an atheist, but I love how calm and just the honesty that you approach every single caller that you have come in. You're not trying to, get anyone mad at you or anything like that.
Now
You're
that's
just there
an
to give information.
exaggeration. Now see, that's an exaggeration. I appreciate it, but I do get irritated and snippy on occasion, so it's not every caller.
This is why we have our, calming Buddhist cow here. Yeah, he just it's a very look here. You can sit on your shoulder for a while, and you're just going to be mellow now for the next 5 minutes or so at least.
Maybe solve this.
I just had a quick thing. The last caller that mentioned Zeno's paradox and said that he was fundamentally wrong with his math, and the reason that Zeno made that paradox was to point out to the Greeks that there is something smaller than one. The Greeks only they measured in basically like little pieces of a ruler. They would measure it out like that, and so their math was fundamentally wrong. It couldn't be broken down farther than one, and they had a problem with the triangle that was one side, and then they couldn't figure out how long the hypotenuse would be on the right triangle. That's all that Zeno was actually trying to do with it, and it just kind of rubbed me the wrong way that the guy said that he was basically fundamentally wrong with his math.
Oh. You mean, I didn't know this. You're saying Greeks did not have a concept of zero?
Yeah, they actually there was actually movements in Greece that were firmly against zero.
Huh.
Yeah, I didn't know about that. I knew about the Pythagoreans trying to hide the square root of 2 as the mystical truth of the public just can't know about this irrational numbers. I mean, it just
exactly.
I mean,
It was along that same vein. Yeah, Zeno made that paradox to show to the Greeks that there was something smaller than 1, and that their math was fundamentally broken from the get-go, and that they should really try to adapt their mathematics to something new that would actually work out when you were trying to get to numbers smaller than 1 or decimals or anything like that. It's not just whole integers.
So who first applied? Like, when was 0 first widely? Who was responsible for that?
I believe that 0 was an Arabic concept.
Yeah.
The Arabs and the Babylonians, I think, were the first recorded to have it, and I don't think that they had it from the same principles. They came to it in their own ways.
The important thing, and we appreciate the call, Jonathan. I'm going to let you go and let everybody know that we got room on the lines now. The important thing is that despite all these gods that were revealing things to people, none of them bothered to reveal 0. None of them bothered to reveal irrational numbers. None of them bothered to explain these conceptual paradoxes. None of them bothered to explain about the speed of light. This is all stuff that we had to kind of figure out.
People had to figure those sorts of things.
None of them bothered to explain about, viruses and bacteria causing diseases.
This is why I always really have a good chuckle whenever I hear, say, fundamentals on the Christian television networks talk about how, well, if you look at the Bible, all modern science is in there, and it has been for. And it's like, well, if people weren't applying it, what good was it? I mean, if we didn't have MRIs and cancer treatments, 1,000 years ago, what good was it to have all of that material in there, and why wasn't the revelation of it clear enough to allow people to do things like, inoculate against the Black Death back in the 1300s?
Yeah, and why is it that we can only find that stuff with a little selective reading after we've already discovered it on our own?
Yeah, so it's it's always kind of funny there.
So while we're waiting for the next batch of callers to be screened, as a reminder, we're trying to take as many calls as we can today, and I realize that we might have gone a little too long about Zeno, so we'll cut that. I'm going to go ahead and hit some of the regular announcements just so people know. We're sponsored by the Atheist Community of Austin, a nonprofit educational organization promoting positive atheism and the separation of church and state. The website's right there on the bottom of your screen, www.atheist-community.org. You can email tv@atheist-community.org, and that goes to myself, the co-host, some of the people behind the scenes. We can't promise to answer every one of them. We do read all of them. We appreciate feedback, comments, criticisms, show suggestions, music suggestions, pointing out errors. Oh boy, do I get some notes pointing out, errors. It's always kind of fun. In addition to this program, the ACA also sponsors a bi-weekly internet audio podcast called The Nonprofits. That's PROPHETS, and that's not the web. There it is. Nonprofitsradio.com is the website. We were live yesterday. We'll be live again in 2 weeks, Saturdays from 2 to 3:30 Central. We don't take live calls on that show, but we run a chat service in conjunction with the show. You can log in, talk to people, hang out, have a good time, and we're probably going to be having somebody more active in chat in the near future.
And don't forget about the AE blog, too, which is atheistexperience.blogspot.com. Which I have not been as active on lately. I've just had too much work intruding with my life, damn it all. But I should be getting back to that next week. But we have other fine participants there. Jen throws in some good posts. Tracy, Matt, about once every,
Blue moon?
Yeah. Blue. That's right.
I'm the blue moon.
Green with purple polka dot moon. And Russell. So it's a good little group, a good little team effort there. And get some fun reader comments, and also our pals in Australia, Lloyd and Alan and Rachel and the McAlpines have put together a Facebook fan group for both the Atheist Experience and the Nonprofits.
And they've got their own blog that they're running.
They're
doing all kinds of stuff in Sydney. If you're listening to the show in the Sydney area, you should probably start looking them up if you're not already a part of it.
That's right.
In addition, after this program is over, we get together and go for dinner at Threadgill's. Hey, we lost a caller.
Call back. Don't go away.
But don't erase that yet.
Yeah. No, it's all right. We were literally getting ready to talk to you in like a minute, half a minute.
You were like 3 seconds from getting on the air when you decided to hang up. Sorry. But anyway, we go to dinner at Threadgill's. The address is on the bottom of the screen. The show's on until 4:30. We'll be down there around 5 o'clock. Any atheist or atheist-friendly person is welcome to come to any of our events. And speaking of events, in addition to The lecture series that we have on the first Sunday of every month, which was this morning, we had Oak Borg come down and speak to us, a retired Air Force colonel. Lots of good information there. Is that the same guy?
We'll find out.
And Thursday night's happy hour on the September 6th. Yesterday we have the ACA garage sale. September 20th we have the ACA Bat Cruise. There's information on the website about contacting and paying so that we can pay for that big boat that we got. We need at least 50 people. There's a lot of people who've committed over things like Facebook and stuff and are saying that they're just planning on showing up and paying, but we're looking for some confirmation. September 27th is a trip to San Antonio to go to the zoo.
And what's the word on the next pub crawl?
There isn't word yet.
Okay, so
We're
still
still
thinking
waiting
about
on some people to sober up from the last pub crawl.
Wow, a whole year ago. You guys must have really
it was
just...
only 6 months.
Oh, okay.
We're going to do more often.
Must have been some good stout.
All right. Is this Jeremy?
Yes.
Hi.
How you doing, Jeremy?
I'm doing well.
All right.
How you guys doing?
We're fine. We're fine.
Not bad.
That's great. I really enjoyed the show.
Thanks.
And I want to kind of say, you had made a comment about earlier about I've been on hold for so long.
It's okay.
You made
Would it have been about the modern science in the Bible?
Yeah, you had made a comment about God being not revealing.
Actually, I made a comment that none of those claims of God's revealing things revealed information that was relevant.
Right, and you were saying, why didn't God reveal whatever back in the day and whatever back in the day?
Yeah, well, we were talking about people claiming that, for example, modern scientific concepts have actually been present in the Bible for 2,000 years. And my response to that is, well, why then weren't those principles being studied and applied to daily life if they were revealed there?
Well, I would say that it goes back to the idea of Adam and Eve and the fruit of knowledge. That fruit of knowledge was pursued by man, okay, and man went with his knowledge, and God would reveal his ultimate truth, and had God, well, I just wanted to make the quick point that had God revealed his science or math or whatever to humans when they weren't able to conceive it, it might appear as magic, and it might misconvey God's message.
Well, but God being omnipotent and all-knowing and all-understanding ought to have it perfectly within his skill set to explain those things to people in such a way that it was very easy for them to comprehend and wouldn't be terrifying and magical and strange and frightening.
Or kind of like a God that's terrible and magic and frightening and strange.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, why is that a problem?
Yeah,
I mean, first of all, even if we were to go with your biblical concept, it wasn't the tree of knowledge. It was the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. It wasn't about knowledge and understanding that supposedly came from that tree within the bounds of Christianity. It was an understanding of right and wrong. So, I mean, the tree thing, doesn't even address the issue. But if the concern is that if God were to reveal something to people who weren't quite ready to understand it, well, why didn't God make them able to understand it?
Because that would be spoon feeding, and that wouldn't be growth. That would be like a robot, building a robot.
How's that like building a robot? By making people, if God created the entire world, let's say this morning, intact with all of the information that we currently have, how is that building robots?
And how is it any more building a robot than to do what he actually is said to have done, which is, lay out a list of do's and don'ts, and if you do the do's, you're okay, and if you do any of the don'ts, you're condemned, damned, whatever. That to me, just setting together, a world, putting people in it, and saying, "I am your God. Here are my rules. You must obey me. If you eat from this, eat the fruit of this tree, oops, you did it. Well, there you go. You're cast out. That's to me, that seems a heck of a lot more like, trying to create robots, because you're saying, oh, well, obey me and you'll be fine. Disobey me and you won't. Whereas creating the people that you create in such a way as to where you can explain them to things to them, have them achieve an intellectual understanding of it, have them ask questions, have them learn, maybe try to have them apply their own knowledge to new discoveries. That doesn't seem to me anything like trying to create a robot.
And
quite the opposite, in fact.
And somebody in the control room wanted to point out, so telling people to wash their hands before they eat would have freaked them out? I mean, they don't have to have a complete and absolute understanding of everything, but if God came to Adam and Eve or whoever in those early days when he was supposedly revealing so much and said, hey, you know what, when I was making you guys, I also created these little monsters that live on stuff and eat on decaying food, so make sure your food's fresh and that your hands are clean before you eat, and this will kind of keep you more healthy. I mean, how much understanding do you have to grasp that?
Well, the idea of bacteria is kind of ludicrous only because had God told an archaic human, about bacteria, it would become mysticism because you can't see it, because the understanding of
well, you can't see God, you can't see heaven, you can't see hell, and yet these are all beliefs that were promulgated and expected to be adhered to. There's lots of things that religion
but
asks you to do.
they're governing beliefs.
No, I can't.
The idea of bacteria wouldn't be governing.
Well, how is it not? I mean,
if you look at the idea of boils and pestilence, he in fact did bring up the idea of bacteria. With the idea of boils, you'll be stricken with boils. He didn't say they were made of little tiny organisms, but he said don't do this, otherwise you'll be stricken with boils.
Well, then why is it okay to insist that people believe in the unseen and the unknowable and the unprovable if they're governing beliefs, as opposed to if they're it not being okay if they're not governing beliefs? I don't get the distinction there, or that that has any bearing on anything.
The misconception you guys are coming from is that God came down and wrote the Bible with his own mighty hand.
No, actually, we don't believe in God at all.
You're saying that. With your argument, you're saying that. Okay. I'm saying that each little individual thing were revealed to man, and man wrote it down. So man didn't have the concept of bacteria back then. Man didn't have the concept.
And if God is revealing things to people, which is what you believe, why wouldn't he reveal things that were useful and true?
And he has revealed that. We got electricity. Do you think that...
Whoa. What did God reveal
about electricity?
It's God gave man his mind, and...
so therefore everything we learn and discover God gets credit for because he gave us a brain. Is that not the weakest argument ever? Hey, here's the thing. If we use that reasoning, then it's God's fault. It's God's fault that we didn't live up to his expectations. So he's unjust to blame us.
There's another element there, and comes in the curse and fall of man.
Yes?
With the seeking of knowledge.
So seeking knowledge is bad?
Well, no, even though a minute ago you said...
It's not bad. It'll reach to the same ends, but it's a different means. We could have, in the hypothetical garden, we could have chose not to eat of the fruit and just been in a euphoria with God. Or we could have eaten the fruit and been given the knowledge of good and evil and had to go in the highways and byways of that. Either way, you would reach the same end.
Well, if we reach the same end, then what's the point?
Yeah, and why did God go to all that trouble to make those ridiculous rules and then condemn Adam and Eve for eating of that fruit and cast them out of his garden?
What you just said was we'd reach the same end. You're saying that the course of history would reach the same end, whether people ate the fruit or not. So you're saying that original sin is irrelevant.
Yeah.
Well, not really, because original sin is only relevant to the sinners themselves.
No.
I need the cow.
Take the cow.
Yeah.
You can't say that we'd reach the same end and not say that it's not irrelevant. What the hell are you saying?
I'm just... Yeah.
I mean, what is your particular belief about God? And how does this...
Well, we're not trying to be rude, man. We're just trying to get to where you're heading with this. That's all.
I understand.
Yeah,
God created everything.
Okay.
God created everything, and he...
But the question is... The question is the importance of knowledge. Why it's more important to think that our knowledge comes from God and what God has either designed or allowed us to comprehend intellectually, or and whether that's better or whether it is better for human beings to have pursued their own knowledge about the world. And I think that's what we're trying to.
Well, that would depend again on your perspective of what's good and what's bad.
Yeah.
Where does that perspective on what's good and what's bad come from?
That perspective would be from the result of your knowledge. If you were to seek empirical knowledge, like you were saying, and if you were, if you have math and all that stuff, then of course the result is going to be more empirical knowledge, and you'll be able to sort through what is right and what's wrong. The bad knowledge would come from if your premise was wrong, then you would end up naturally with an aspect of bad knowledge somewhere in your lot. You know what I mean? So.
Well, yeah, if you believe things that are false, then typically you will not have good experience. And
that's the trouble with religion, is because religion itself, depending on what religion you go through, there are universal truths in many religions, and very coinciding truths in,
like what?
In pretty much all religions.
Well, I think he means like
the idea
common
of goodness,
beliefs.
the idea of happiness. You have the idea of love.
Yeah, but what is it about? I mean, yes, religion contains things in it that are true in the sense that you're talking about, that we love, we care, we experience. But those things, I mean, to borrow one of Russell's themes again, you can find those themes in comic books like Spider-Man. What is it about? There's nothing intrinsic to the religion that makes it true. Religion is talking about human nature, reality, and those areas where it's consistent with reality. Yeah, of course those are truths. I'm talking about whether or not a God exists, what evidence there is for this. I mean, you believe, what you started to say earlier, is that not only does God exist, but he created everything. Now, why would you believe that?
Just because it is, and I can't explain it. So you need I need a higher,
I think what you
guys, it seems just hopeless. It seems more of a decaying perspective. Having the idea that we're just on a rock and we're just observing science unfold.
Oh, I don't see anything hopeless about that. To me, that's an adventure.
It makes me anxious thinking.
I think what I'm getting from you, I mean, just reading between the lines of the things that you're saying, is that you have simply developed these beliefs because they've been things that you've been brought up with. They're part of your culture, they're part of your upbringing and what you've been raised in. And I think that you have really only just recently started thinking about them or trying to think about them, which is why in this call that we've been having with you, your thoughts have really come across being very, very unformed, like you're just sort of trying to puzzle it all out live on the line with us. And that's good, that's fine. But what I'd encourage you to do, if you want to call us back and talk to us anytime in the future, think about this stuff ahead of time, maybe try to write some ideas down, and get some sort of a linear flow going on there, because I think that what's happening is you keep running into stumbling blocks. Matt will bring up a question, and there'll be a long pause, and you'll be thinking about it.
It's 2-on-1, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean,
well, it isn't even really that. I think that Jeremy is really trying to think through his beliefs, and this is probably a new thing for you, and that's great. But just to sum all this up, what I was trying to say earlier was pertaining to the fact that a lot of religions, especially Christianity, try to make specific claims about what their God does and doesn't do, what their God has and has not revealed, simply so that God can get the credit for whatever good is going on in the world. But if you look at it just in a straightforward, from a factual perspective, you can say, well, if, for example, say the scientific knowledge that is available to us now in the 20th century, if all of that information was in fact in the Bible in some sort of arcane and in coded form all this time, then why wouldn't God have been perhaps a little bit more clear about it? I mean, for example, there could have been hundreds of millions of lives saved in the 14th century with the Black Death. If the idea of, we were talking earlier, bacteria, these little germs, the germ theory of disease, if those people had known about that then, instead of us having to get almost all the way through the 19th century before that was a proven thing, a lot of misery and strife and suffering could have been saved for the human race if that had been known. So I think that what you see a lot of times in religion
it may not
with
have been
believers,
addressed in the Bible.
yeah. But
I
was just trying to explain. I was responding to a certain claim that I've heard some Christians make, and trying to say, based on my observations, that claim can't really be true. I think you're just taking credit for the modern knowledge that we have through the very human intellectual pursuit of science and what have you, and then they take that and then they try to give their Bible and their God credit for it. When that isn't really justified. That was really all of that what I was getting to. But look, I encourage you to think through your beliefs more and try to sort of get some flow going and call us back in the future.
And on that note, I gotta let you go, Jeremy, because we actually do have full lines again. But please do call back, and there's more points to discuss. Part of the problem is that we get so kind of scattershot, broad. I mean, we covered all kinds of things in there. And really, it was just about, well, why didn't God reveal this? Well, there's plenty of other questions that we could ask for people who have serious beliefs in things like the Bible about why God, according to their beliefs, did this or didn't do this. And, it's like, well, why isn't there a commandment saying thou shalt not enslave thy fellow man? Why isn't there one against, a book burning or the challenging ideas? How much do we lose when Christians, religionists, went after the Library of Alexander, where we had to... This was before knowledge was stored in a way where it was
and I thought
fairly
the Muslims
safe.
had a little bit of a... I thought the Muslims had to have to take a little bit of the Alexandria credit too, don't they?
No.
Who was it? Who was it? Who did that to
Muslims
Alexandria?
didn't exist. It was Christians.
Okay. Not me specifically, that was the name. I'll have to go back and read up on that.
We're trying to get as many calls as we can. So, Chris, how you doing?
Pretty good. How you guys doing?
Not too bad.
I just was going to make a comment about the last call or something you guys were talking about, and it's, I'll try to do it in a logical manner, not jump all over the place. But at any rate, the thing about, I guess, I can't remember what's your one name, the guy with the brown shirt on had said...
Martin,
okay.
Hey.
The one thing the guy had brought up about all these, technology and things like that being in the Bible, and, things that were found out through scientific research and stuff. It was all in the Bible. I'm not sure if I remember the guy's name. It's a psychologist, old school, and I'll probably think of it as I'm talking to you. A theory he has, which I kind of think might be true, that, Stone Age culture, man's first on Earth, when he first came here, that, it's where mythology comes from, is from the perspective of the world. And obviously, if you're in a Stone Age culture, the world you live in is very different than the world, people lived in even 200 years ago or 500 years ago or now, at any rate. So they came up with these fantastical reasons to explain everything. And, that's pretty evident in Native American culture when Europeans showed up here, the difference in the outlook of the world and in their spirituality and everything. But I guess my point is that his theory is that, when the wheel was first created, or whatever you want to call it, invented, from then on the world was a different place. And with each, new technological advance, the world becomes a different place, and people that live in that world are going to see it differently than the people who lived before these things happened. Therefore, sorry about that, exponentially, it's going to happen more and more. I mean, I'm 43 years old, and obviously, even the world I live in today is very different than the one when I was 10 years old. Okay. But any 10-year-old kid now has no idea my perspective of what the world used to be.
Oh, yeah.
And so it just happens over and over, and that really, that's what religion was for then, to explain. It's called, Greek mythology was the religion of it today, really, and they call it mythology now, and it's kind of weird that, Christianity's been around for 2,000 years or whatever, and it's still religion, but really it's just mythology to explain things that they didn't understand at the time.
Yeah, and yet 2,000 years is not especially impressive in terms of religious longevity. I mean, the gods of ancient Egypt were worshipped for what, something like 6,000 years. There was the cult of Artemis, 4,000 years. A lot of these.
It's not long at all. But when you really think about it, the way we've technology, just in the last, 50 years, the technology. That how it's exponential, I guess that's the right word I'm trying to use, how, it's grown, and become, honestly, 10 years ago, not everybody had a cell phone. Everybody's got cell phones now. Right. 20 years ago, it was, I remember people driving around with car phones, and I thought it was ridiculous. So it's kind of like, as this happens, I believe that culturally you have to catch up at some point and realize that, all the old ideas and of religion and everything have to be, and, you had I don't know if it was today or another show I was watching where you had a caller say that, he was an atheist, but he believed that, some people have to believe in religion because it's the only way they can be good people or whatever, that they're just incapable, and I don't really believe that if, people
I
are
think that
actually
sells
taught
people
the
short,
truth.
really, but religion is good at that, convincing people that they need to sell themselves short. Anyway, go on, I'm sorry, I didn't mean...
Oh, no, that's all right. I mean, really, that's just my point, that I think the previous caller was, to me, seems like, I don't know, I think it's Carl Jung was the one who had that theory, but to me that made sense when I first read it. I mean, I was already an atheist, but I have a very limited knowledge really of, like you guys were talking, the theory, what was it?
Zeno's
probably Zeno's
earlier, all this mathematical theory and stuff, and well, I don't know any of that, and I'm probably not as well read as you guys or some of your other callers. I still, I read things that, already support a position I have maybe or whatever, but it just seems to me that, really in the end, like your last caller, I mean, it seems like he's kind of questioning himself anyway, but, to get more knowledge about other ideas other than these same, that what's being, put in people's faces, brainwashing them basically to believe,
Yeah, and, no, I'm glad he called, and I hope he calls back, and I hope that, the big thing is granted, and I've been doing the TV show for a while, so I'm probably slightly better than a caller, although I've got a long ways to go about being able to formulate exactly what it is that you want to say. You can lead me down a rabbit trail really easy because I like to think about several different things. But I am glad that he called in to talk because there are people who have these rigid fundamentalist beliefs who have no justification for it at all, who never bother to give it any thought as to why they believe the things they believe. They are closer to robots than anything that would have happened by giving people knowledge.
Yeah.
And the fact that he's willing to question it and call in and talk to some kind of, rabid new atheists, if you believe the hype, that's encouraging.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not criticizing for calling in. I'm just saying, that there's one thing about your show. I think that it helps get different perspectives and maybe give people, tell them where they can maybe get different ideas from or hear different, perspectives or, ideas. Anyway, thanks a lot for letting me call.
Sure. Thanks, Chris.
All right, thank you. Yeah.
And we got full lines again except for one now. So we got one open. So it's, how you doing, Mike? You there?
Hello?
Mike?
Yeah.
How are you?
I'm good.
What do you got for us?
We can barely hear you.
I'm talking about God and the hurricane.
Oh, the hurricane?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, what do you want to say about him?
So if you believe in God, if you're in a hurricane, what's going to happen like in 2010, 2011, all that stuff?
Well,
I don't know that
I think he said if... are you talking about like we're having really bad hurricanes now, so will they get worse?
That's what I'm trying to say.
It's possible. Do you know what a hurricane is?
It's like a big...
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I know. Yeah, it's a big storm, but I mean, do you know what they're for? Do you know what the function they serve?
No.
Okay. Well, what a hurricane is it's a weather system that cycles excess heat from the equatorial regions, from the center of the Earth, up to the poles. They're basically heat sinks. It's the Earth's self-cooling system. And the reason that we're having very, very violent hurricanes over the last few years is because we have a hotter Earth. It's this thing called global warming that some people want to believe is something that doesn't exist. And so when you have a hotter planet, and all you have to do, I think, you said we're customarily over 100 degrees every day this summer in Austin, you're going to have nastier storms. You're going to have some heavy weather. Now, to whatever degree global warming right now is both a natural cycle, to what degree human activity has made it worse or better or what have you.
I had to hang up on you, Mike. There's some
because
kind
there's
of crackling
interference.
that's messing up the speaker.
It's going to depend on what we do over the next few years to try to deal with the warming situation. If we cut our emissions, if we look for alternative energy sources, et cetera, what have you. Whether or not the hurricanes get milder or worse, I think that's going to have a lot to do with it.
Yeah, and the big thing is addressing the kind of issue of hurricanes to God. I think he may have been asking if you believe in a God, and yet we're going to see increased destruction by weather. Where does this put God?
Sure, there are a lot of people who are saying, "Oh, well, heavy hurricanes, so it's a sign of the end times," right? I mean, that's a fundamentalist view.
Or maybe it's a sign of an evil God, or maybe it's a sign that God doesn't exist. And the longer that we keep pretending that God exists,
certainly that would be the Pat Robertson thing, right? I mean, the Florida had the gay parade, so God's going to send hurricanes and meteors and aliens and whatever else to wipe them out, and then his hometown gets hit instead, which I found very amusing that one time.
It's kind of like praying for rain on the DNC and having it mess up the RNC instead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Maybe it's a sign that the longer we keep believing in these invisible friends in the sky who like to toss tornadoes at homos prevents us from actually dealing with real issues, from focusing on what's really happening on the planet we live on. What can we or can't we do about it? And these people who are waiting for the end times to be ushered in,
anybody who treats the end of the world like it's a party they can't wait to get to, walk away from that person. Okay, you don't need to know them.
Yeah, if you really are that, ready to be hurried off to Jesus' side, shoot yourself.
Yeah.
I mean,
but this is why
find somebody to do it. If
but see, there's the little suicide loophole about.
That's what I said. Find somebody to do it if
you
think suicide's a problem.
No, but this is why we think that as
immune from prosecution, I'll consider it.
A lot of people ask atheists, well, what does atheist, what does being atheist, give you, right? I mean, what's the benefit? Religious people have all these sound bites about, why it's great to be a believer, and what it does for you, and a lot of people think, well, atheism is just nothing, right? It doesn't do anything wrong. I think that this last call is a perfect example of, as an atheist, if your mind isn't cluttered by all of this mystical and supernatural claptrap, and you're faced with a real-world problem, well, then you're pretty much inclined to look for real-world solutions to that problem. Whereas somebody who might be a religious fundamentalist, thinking, oh, this is my God being angry, etc., they're going to waste a lot of time praying and doing whatever else they do and trying to find some sort of supernatural or divine answer to the issue. And they're going to waste a lot of time when what they have, in fact, is a practical matter that needs to be dealt with practically. Atheism kind of forces you to just sort of look at the real world and say, well, what are our problems and what do we need to do about those problems? What are the practical, rational solutions that we need to find? And what are we looking up?
I'm looking stuff up while you talk.
I bored you so thoroughly that you're off Googling.
There was a good post that somebody had recently about what good atheism has done.
I see.
But
okay.
I wasn't able to find it.
No, that's fine. You don't have to explain.
Don't do that.
All right. Okay. Oh, do we want to have our fun email?
We get email.
And
if I could print this out so some of you could see it, boy, that'd be fun.
Oh, this is great. This is
there's this whole thing with
here. You read it because it came
punctuation, spelling. There's almost nothing capitalized. There's a few homophonic errors.
You can put that one up on the blog.
The subject is how misleading you are.
No, it's how misleading your are.
Oh, sorry. I'm so used to reading things one way that when people screw it up that badly, I miss.
Yeah.
How misleading your are, with an exclamation mark.
Mm-hmm.
Atheism is not new and is as old as religion itself. Believing in oneself.
Okay, now let's stop right there. I mean, duh moment number one.
I think maybe predate religion.
Well, in terms
had
of
to invent a belief before somebody could believe it.
Yeah.
And prior to them believing it, they didn't believe.
yeah, and well, they didn't believe simply because it didn't even occur to them,
Yeah.
right? But to have atheism as an oppositional stance
Yeah.
would have taken religion first.
Yes.
So, atheism is not new and as old as religion itself. That's duh moment number one in sentence number one. Let's keep going.
Then believing in God.
Okay.
Sentence number 2.
Okay. Exclamation point.
I use sentence in the loosest possible terms.
Yes. We're going to keep an exclamation point count too, so that's the first one.
I am a scientist, not atheist. Okay. Nobody ever said that scientists had to be atheists, do they? Did I miss a memo?
Well, I think that scientists ought to at least be functionally literate or be able to write.
I don't believe for a second this person's a scientist, but I'm actually addressing this point about I'm a scientist, not an atheist. Okay. There's plenty of those.
Yeah, yeah.
People can be wrong about things. I look at facts to back up my beliefs, not speculations about if or not there is a God.
I'm still here. Yeah.
I look at facts. I'm agreeing. I
Yeah.
tend to look at facts, and I'm not speculating. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm asking where's the evidence of a God. So,
Right.
So we'll continue. I know there is billions of atoms and trillion to the second power of DNA splattered throughout, with a hyphen, by the way, the universe and thing unexplained by science today! Exclamation mark.
That's what. Trillion to the second power of DNA splattered throughout the universe. Now let's just bask in that visual, folks, for just a minute. Just
now, there's a kind of a sub-comment that we can make about belief here.
I'm just hung up on the right.
How many
I love
of you
that.
believe he's a scientist? Come on now. Before you assume that there is no God or assume there is, you must look at the evidence.
Duh moment number 2.
I completely agree.
Yeah,
And by the way, I'd say not before you assume. I'd say instead of assuming,
yes.
consider the evidence and then base your belief on that evidence. There was a period there to mark the end of the sentence, but it actually keeps going. And not at the winners of history's version of truth! Exclamation mark.
We're at 3 now.
So he seems to think that I've come to the assumption that God doesn't exist without actually examining the evidence and instead accepting the version of history's version of truth. So
which would
historically,
be that God exists,
Yeah.
because religion has sort of run the world for thousands of years,
Yeah.
are we not?
just because they claim to be one thing doesn't mean they are that which they claim.
4.
Another exclamation mark. Okay, I agree.
Yeah.
Because you claim to be a scientist, and that does not mean that you are that which you claim. Atheist, singular, are the same. No comma. You worry about future and worry about today. Now, it's possible we thought about this could be somebody's second language. English isn't their primary language.
Except,
the name, which I'm not going to read,
yeah.
isn't one that would lead me to conclude that English is a second language. I'll just put it that way.
Okay.
It's possible.
But anyway, we're on exclamation point 5.
Yeah. Atheists are the same. You worry about future and worry about today, as most humans do.
6.
Another exclamation mark. I worry about my children and their future.
7. We worry about your children and their future.
More than I did before
Yeah.
I got your email. But I look at the Christian world and see a joy they have that no other set of people have.
8.
Really? How do you, I mean, I can understand that based on your experience, this is what you see, that Christians are more joyful than others. I'm done. Oh, there's a cow again. Hey. What's the evidence to back that up? Because, I mean, that's kind of like saying, along the lines of saying the Christians are more moral than other people. When we actually go out and do studies, we find, for example, that people who claim to be Christian are no more moral, no more ethical. The divorce rate is as high or higher I don't particularly see them more joyful. And when you talk to some Christians about it, they have the exact opposite view. That some Christians, not all, because they're so gung-ho on fire for Jesus, they're persecuted by Satan, and that's the reason why their lives are miserable. So where is this joy that is superior in this portion of the population that doesn't exist in as great a degree in this other population? Because none of the data that I've seen actually supports what you're saying.
And even if it did, since when does X makes me happy equate to X equals true? Right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure that if you ask a bunch of drunks how they're feeling, you're going to get a really good response rate for damn good, boy.
That's George Bernard Shaw's classic line. To say that a religious man is happier than a non-religious man is no more to the point than to say that a drunk man is happier than a sober man. Makes no difference.
Now, there is an issue that if a particular religion had a positive benefit on the individual that made them live a happier life, that may actually be an argument worth making if you say that your only goal is happiness. I'd say that the things that we find about religion that would provide joy or happiness or benefit or positive, you can find all of those things in secular areas as well. And the reason is because none of it is coming from any supernatural agent. It's like the example I've used before where a guy is in a mine and it's caved in. Praying might make it more likely that he's going to survive, but not because of God's going to intervene. It's because it's going to have a calming effect that's going to cause him to use less oxygen, which is going to extend the amount of time that he has before he suffocates in order to promote a rescue. Now, God didn't do this. Prayer did. The thing is that the real benefit, the calming effect, the optimism towards being rescued, hope, whatever, that can be achieved by prayer, no matter which God you pick, meditation, or a rational evaluation of the situation. Understanding that if I calm down, I'm going to use less oxygen. And by the way, now that I know that and I can get calm real quick, let me see if there are some other things that I can do besides begging a bearded man to frickin' rescue me to get myself out of this situation.
Yeah, like dig my way out, if possible.
People find their car keys after praying, not because God tells them where the car keys are. It's because they calmed down, focused their brain on something, and remembered where they put their car keys. So, where are we? Go look at the Christian world, see a joy they have, no other set people have.
Yeah, we're at 8 exclamation points.
Yeah, so I look at both sides, no worries and a joy beyond measure, or fear and self-human interest.
9.
And death. Like, Christians don't die? To believe in something greater than one's self. But left to human temper, the world is then ruled by fear, hatred, and death. Wars, disease, famine, religion has bring out love and understanding. Bull! Religion has bring out love and understanding, and it's secularism that's responsible for wars, disease, famine. You just stop drinking the Kool-Aid.
Yes.
But for a few bad apples, take Islam, for example, it claim all infidels should be killed. Two more exclamation marks. Okay, first of all...
oh, man, where do you start with that? That's a target-rich environment if we've ever seen one.
I'm going to do something. Somebody asked us to, when we talk about things that are in the Bible, to provide the verses more often. I'll try. I won't be so crude to just say go look it up yourself, but you can Google it really quickly. But there's a passage, I think it's in Deuteronomy, maybe chapter 13, but don't quote me, that says if your husband or wife or somebody tries to convince you to come and worship some other god, your hand should be the first one on them to put them to death. This is no different than what you're seeing in Islam. You're just ignoring what's in your Old Testament.
Well, also, what was it? Is it not Joshua, the book, where you have God's armies going on this something like 35 city tour of mayhem and war and destruction, and then they finally wipe out the Midianites, and God says, okay, well, kill absolutely everyone in this city except for all the young women, keep them for yourselves, and then you have this sort of God-ordained mass rape of 36,000 Midianite women. I just don't see a whole heck of a lot
the point, of course, is that the justification for going over there and killing them was that they were worshiping some other god. They were the infidels.
Yeah. So
you don't get to blame, just because secular society has dragged the religion that you prefer kicking and screaming towards sanity and morality, doesn't mean you get to pretend that your religion is without its problems and point your fingers at some other ones. Yes, Islam is a messed up basket of crap. It's also younger than yours, and it's been the enforced religion of a number of states. It hasn't had the opportunity to be dragged kicking and screaming towards sanity the way your religion has. But you don't get off the hook. You don't get to pretend that the stuff that's in your Bible is not in your Bible, unless you're one of those people who just say, well, the Bible doesn't matter, it was written by men, it was all wrong, and I just believe in Jesus. He just makes me feel all warm and fuzzy. Because you've invented your own new religion. You've ignored the foundations of your religion and created something that makes you feel good.
And a lot of believers do that. I did an essay some years ago on what I call Christians' moral blind spot, where they'll just sort of decide not to notice the things about their beliefs that are in the history of their religion that are a little bit ugly, and simply focus on what gives them the warm fuzzies, and that's fine.
Yeah, it's a banquet.
Yeah, so. And you bring those things up, and they'll usually give you the "no true Christians" liner, et cetera, et cetera. So
oh yeah. I can't. As somebody who used to be a Christian, depending on your definition, I can't count the number of times I've had the "no true Christian" thing. Let me finish getting through this, and we got more calls.
Okay, yeah, because we want to get. Let's get to this fast, because it's just. Yeah. We want to talk to.
But in Christian belief, accept Jesus into your heart and be saved beyond your earthly years. This is just a look at what are atheists and their views. Looks like no one ever thought it through. We don't have enough evidence to claim there is no God.
Well, we don't have enough evidence to claim there is no invisible cosmic bunny rabbit named Gus. But, what's the evidence that he does exist? Well, probably just as bad. So,
I think we have enough evidence to claim there is no God.
Depends on how you define.
We may not be able to prove it to anything close to an absolute certainty. But I'm pretty much convinced that there is no God. And by the way, it doesn't matter, because the burden of proof is on the people who are making the claim that a God exists.
Yes.
Or creation, but belief. And then you must stomp out the belief in love, hope, and faith if there is no God. No, you don't.
Yeah. What does there being a God have to do with love, hope, and faith? Faith I can understand. That's
faith, but love and hope, we're kind of fans of those.
Yeah. See, because that has to do with reality and not fantasy.
For all the idea of God is a starting point of creation. Here's where we have fun with science.
Oh yeah, this is how much of a scientist this guy is.
Here's your scientist who wrote us. If Big Bang is correct, then God is the impact of two asteroids.
Wait. Read that again. It's too beautiful.
If Big Bang is correct, then God is the impact of two asteroids.
I love this man.
But why hasn't there been another Big Bang with 3 question marks? All the time, asteroids.
He's missing out the fun of the Big Bang.
All the time, asteroids impact each other, and the universe keeps expanding into infinity.
That's why we have the universe because asteroids just keep
Big Bang was a couple of asteroids, and since that happens all the time, then obviously we should be seeing Big Bangs all the time, but we don't. It just keeps expanding, so this Big Bang theory must be wrong. Your Big Bang theory is wrong.
I think our boy was hit by an asteroid at some point.
But to be nice, he follows it up with a final line that clearly is derived. Hey, I was right. Deuteronomy 13:6. I don't have to have that stuff memorized, but sometimes I do. Anyway, he follows up this asteroid impact Big Bang thing with a line that clearly follows logically from the preceding sentence and the rest of the scientific dribble. Atheism is a belief just as Satanism is, belief in oneself. Thanks. And some of you wonder why I don't get around to your real emails.
Yeah. I don't need to believe in myself. Look, here I am.
Yeah, he's not a scientist, I'll say. And if you are, I need to find out where you got your credentials, because we need to talk with those people. Chris, how you doing?
Oh, I'm doing fine. That was a fun letter, by the way. He pretty much just came equipped with a shovel and just dug himself a hole.
Some of the stuff just writes itself.
Yeah.
Or it looks like it does.
Yeah. Anyway, I noticed some people were talking about biblical origins, and I wonder, have you read the book by Tim Callahan? He writes for Skeptic magazine, and it's called The Secret Origins of the Bible. And it's really a wonderful book. I mean, it's it's certainly not dumbed down, but it's very interesting and even entertaining. And he writes quite extensively about the origins, about the Mesopotamian mythology, and because
well, neither of us have read it, but I saw a head nod, and I'd be willing to bet that Tracy's read it because Tracy's done a lot of studying in it.
And I haven't read that one, but I read a different one last year. So I want to go back and go through it again. But I read a different book of Callahan's called "The Bible Against Itself."
Yeah, I think I've heard of that.
Yeah, which is where he talks about a lot of the contradictions in the scripture and what have you. So it's interesting, this scholarship. Some of the other stuff that I've read is Who Wrote the Bible by I think Finkelman is one of the.
Finkelman, Weinstein.
Yeah,
I've heard of that.
Where they discuss, and it's mainly a coverage of the Old Testament, but.
Well, he covers the whole Bible really. It's I think he does a very good job of it. He also has a lot of illustrations, and I think he also wrote an article in Skeptic about that. You remember that incident in one of the books about they're appearing to people something like a man on a wheel within a wheel and all these faces, and people say, that's a UFO. And no, he was saying, no, it's not. It was actually the throne of a god or a hero. And he can really describe things like that in detail. It just surprises me when you listen to a lot of Christians. They just think it all starts at the Jews and it didn't come from anything before that. And I think it'd be really helpful to recommend something to them and say, listen, these stories are very old. They come from other stories before that, like this, Enuma Elish and the Atrahasis and all of these other books that they've actually found, I suppose on tablets. So I mean, it's there, and there's a great deal of it. And this is really quite good by Tim Callahan, so I'd recommend it.
Yeah, it's been one I've been meaning to get to. I have this long list of sort of atheist books, books on biblical history. Biblical history is intriguing.
It is.
Just in terms of how that collection of books, actually, because that's what the Bible is, was assembled. All of the ecclesiastical debates and wrangling that went on to decide what the canon would be, what it wouldn't be, how there had to be several rough drafts, as it were, of the New Testament before they canonized what we have today. It's really, really interesting to go through all of that. And it's interesting to know just how many believers are not especially knowledgeable about that. I mean, certainly perhaps a lot of ministers and people who've gone to seminary, they'd have some of that knowledge, but I think what a lot of, especially if you get to fundamentalist churches, Pentecostal, can't talk today, Pentecostal churches, a lot of the really, really right-wing Christian churches, where they don't go out of their way to teach that to the congregation, to the Sunday schools, to what have you. They just do Bible study, but they don't really, I think they sort of intentionally keep the congregation ignorant of, and here's exactly how much debate went into the inclusion of this. This is the different translations that we have of this particular book. And that's fascinating to me. I mean, I didn't learn a whole lot about the history of the Bible when I was Christian, when I was younger, in my teens, what have you. I didn't really learn much of anything about that. I didn't learn anything about, they say, the Muratorian canon and how it got, it got there and how it, I think the canon that we have was not finalized until something like the 4th century. I didn't learn a whole lot of that until I did my own study and my own reading after I was already an atheist, and so it's intriguing. So.
Yes, I mean. Not being a believer, I'm not put off by studying it. It's actually very interesting because what it teaches you about is really human psychology. It's about how people think and feel and how we came up with this in the first place. And so this is one really good source. And thanks a lot, and for doing everything you're doing there. And it's been a fun show. So I'll let you go now.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much for calling.
Okay, bye.
Bye. We've also had it pointed out by the studio that we should mention a book called Who Wrote the Bible by Richard Friedman, who was actually a professor at UCSD.
That's what
while I was there.
Not Finkelman, Friedman.
And I missed the opportunity to take a humanities class from him, and I've been kicking myself for that ever since. But I've skimmed through that book, and it's very interesting because it actually traces back 4 separate groups of people who had conflicting edits going into the Bible. And that's just the Old Testament. Then with the New Testament you have the whole thing with the Council of Nicaea and just everything that we regard today as biblical is actually the end result of a bunch of interfaith wars between people who had to go through all these different books that could have been included in the Bible, but then some of them were just thrown out.
It was kind of like a big wiki back then.
Yeah, I suppose so.
Yeah, sort of like...
As your host, I'd like to point out the fact that if you've enjoyed today's show, you can go to the show will be over in about...
We got 10 minutes, so that's plenty of time
a little
to
less than 10 minutes.
Take another couple of calls.
You can visit, let's see, is it Threadgills? Yes, dinner at Threadgills, 5 p.m., 301 West Riverside Drive. So we'll be done with the show in about 10 minutes, and then 30 minutes after that. If you're atheist or atheist friendly and you haven't come to preach, proselytize, provoke, or punch, or Patrick, then you can come right along. All right, so we've got open lines right now.
Mm-hmm.
Chirp.
Something that I'm just not... Something's different, but I can't put my finger on it.
What makes you say that?
I don't know. Here, have the cow.
Okay.
Right.
Move.
All right, so 10 more minutes, 9 more minutes actually. We're at 477-2288. We'll rack up a couple more calls. Give us your theory of everything or what have you, and ask us some questions. Why are we atheists? What we believe, what we don't believe, etc., etc. Point out where we're wrong, and we'll be happy to chat with you again. And websites also for those folks who are tuning in just the last half hour or so of the show. Atheist-community.org is the group website. Atheistexperience.com. Is there a hyphen there for the show website?
Yeah, it's atheist-experience.com, and there's actually one extra thing to add about that. If you go to atheist-what?
Stop that!
Atheist-experience.com, if you go to /fans, there's Don's added some stuff about posting videos up, fans where they've ripped out sections and posted it on YouTube. More of a we're promoting viral type video stuff. Here, you need the cow to calm down.
I need the cow.
I don't know why you're so.
It's just something's different today, and I don't get it. I'm calm now. Thank you. Thanks, little guy.
So yeah, if you want to watch back issues of the show or back episodes of the show, if you go to atheist-experience.com. On the left-hand side, there'll be a link there that says archive. This is changing a little, so if it happens to change before the show is over with, or if it's changed, you'll have to follow some other instructions. I'm all about change. Change is good. Change is the theme. But if you click on the archive and scroll down, because there's information at the top about how to access it, you'll find a list of the past shows. That's creepy. You'll find a list of the past shows. And you can expand that list to go beyond what we're currently listing as hosted. So there'll be a link there called video that'll lead you to the Google video for any of the episodes that we have video for. And there's also links for MP3 downloads and podcast stuff. But we've got Kevin. How you doing?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I've enjoyed the show today. I just want to bring up something kind of as a challenge and as a... I don't know. I think it's kind of interesting, but I've been learning and reading about the Templeton Foundation. Mm-hmm. And, Templeton is the investor that has made millions and now funds studies regarding science and religion. And they have done at least one study, well-funded study, on the effect of prayer and the healing powers of prayer with sick patients. But I'm going to make a prediction for you and see how you respond. I predict that they will continue to do these studies, and that the studies will be done appropriately and fairly and honestly and competently. And then that sometime in the fairly near future, there will be a study that shows a statistically positive result with prayer in sick people. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, we hear what you're saying.
I predict that this will occur.
I think... that as long as they have sound methodology, they will not find a statistically significant result that favors prayer. There's two options. Either prayer works and we'd see a statistical significance in any properly methodologically correct study, or it doesn't. And when we find, like if we do 20 studies, the one that we thought was methodologically sound is actually an outlier statistically, and its results.
Matt, I'm going to tell you that you're wrong, and I think it's important that you understand we, and me, because in my training and my college and things like this, I learned statistics. But and as I age, I learn about it more. And so, what is the meaning of a statistically positive result? And the usual positive result is what they call a p-value of 0.05.
Right.
Okay? For example, if they're testing a placebo versus some new drug, okay, they want to see whether the treated population is different than the placebo population. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
Sure, yes.
And so what that p-value means, assuming that the study is otherwise performed correctly, that p-value means, at least a p-value of 0.05. It means that there's a 1 in 20 chance that this result could be accounted for by chance alone,
Right.
and not by a real difference in the drug and the placebo.
Right.
You see? So the point is, you and I, we invent a sugar pill, and we do a whole bunch of studies. Let's say we do 100 studies. Well, a bunch of those studies are going to show a statistically positive result, even if our drug is made of sugar. You see what I'm saying? Because a statistically positive result, by chance, will occur 1 in 20 times. I think this is important to know about what this means, statistically positive result.
Right.
Especially a p-value of 0.05, which is generally and by convention referred to. So I guarantee you that there will be a positive result study showing prayer as a positive result, appropriately performed result, appropriately performed test at a p-value of 0.5 or 0.05 or better.
Well, let me
and of course, the meaning of that will be absolutely zero, except to the people who perform the study.
I'd say that's where we reach the point where we start looking at meta-statistics, where we're comparing the statistics of a number of different studies in order to distill down to what's really going on.
The problem that I've always had, though, is how do you set up the parameters for a study like that? I mean, what are the protocols? How do you construct such a study in such a way that there is not room for sort of interference from, inappropriate sources, as it were? I mean, for example, in a drug study, you can set up a double-blind situation fairly easily, right? Like you're talking about with the sugar pill and the placebo and what have you, and whereas in something like a prayer study, well, let's say they decide to take a bunch of cancer patients in a specific hospital wing, and they say, well, this is going to be our group.
We're out of time.
Oh, we are?
That's what I was trying to let you know.
Yeah. Well, how do you,
Kevin, I had to put you on hold.
How do you keep external prayers from? I mean, when I was a little boy, I was, God bless everyone in the whole wide world. How do you shield against that kind of interference? I don't know how they would set up.
And we've done shows on that actual study before where we talked about some of this. You can go back and probably find it in the archive. We'll see you again in a week. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Thanks to the crew who's listed there and shown right there. We'll be down to Thread Goes shortly. Any atheist or atheist-friendly person is welcome to join us. Take care.